10:04. Parker is going to join us soon. He is our chair, but as vice chair, I'll step in until he joins us. And we want to start with approval of the agenda. It also noticed that before we look at the agenda and see if there's any feedback, just want to remind everyone that there's a conflict of interest reminder. So I'm just going to read it. In accordance with the bylaws adopted by the Environmental and Energy Stewardship Committee, subcommittee members shall not vote on any matter where the outcome of the matter being considered is reasonably likely to have a direct, substantial, or readily identifiable financial impact on the member or any matter involving a person with whom the member has a close familial, business, or other associational relationship. Is there any item of business on the agenda for which any member of this committee is requesting recusal? So think about that as we look at the agenda, which I guess I'll go over verbally. We're gonna look at approving the minutes from, gosh, however long ago it was that we were together. We'll have public comment at the outset. Item 4 is gonna be a water quality land conservation update. 5 is gonna be Hurricane Helene air quality impacts and monitoring. Item 6 is going to be an update on internal sustainability projects, which a might flag might be one with a conflict of interest if we have anything to do, I don't know. Item 7 is us looking at our 2025 schedule, and item 8 is going to review our committee terms. So does anyone have anything around conflict of interest and or a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. And if we could also, I think it'd be great for us to go around because we have a new member as well. Maybe we could go around and.
Oh, fantastic idea. So if we
could all introduce ourselves.
So we will add introductions, and if introductions are added to the agenda, we have a second. I have to do like seconds and formal motions. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Great, agenda approved. So Terry, do you want to welcome us with starting with the intros?
Yes, I'd like to welcome our new commissioner, Drew Ball, to our, I still say climate environment, it's energy and environment though. And so welcome, and I'm Terry Wallace. I've been serving on this committee since we first started this committee. And what year did we begin?
4 years ago. I thought it was 2 years ago, but it's been 4 years.
Has it been? Okay.
It's possible. But
I know, it doesn't, we're just having so much fun that I didn't even realize it'd been that long.
I don't know how y'all went without an environment for so long. It's really incredible.
Glad
we have one now.
Yes.
I think I know most folks. Drew Ball, new commissioner appointed in January, and very excited to be doing this work. I've been working in the environmental realm for a couple decades now, and excited to leverage that experience and help the community move forward with cool initiatives.
I'm Bob McDonald, and I forget the term, but I think it's at large, is that correct? Representation here. So I'm retired by the background in agriculture and environmental science.
I'm Josh Littlejohn. I'm also at large. I have been in this committee since the middle of last year, I think. I have a deep background in sustainability, currently work for Duke Energy as a business cycle advisor, actually now covering this territory. So.
I'm Maggie Ullman, and I have also been on this committee since it started. And then I also, of course, served for the city of Asheville, so I really love that we're able to collaborate in this type of structure. And I've served as the city's environment and safety committee chair. So I think that we've had a lot of good cross-pollination and understanding across the agencies by me getting to sit in and be a member of this. Yeah. You want to do some staff introductions too, or just jump in?
Well, I think you know all the staff.
Great.
Right. Yes.
We've gotten there already.
Okay.
By March we're in.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Fantastic. So next item, number 2, the approval of the meeting minutes, which would be from our September meeting, which were sent ahead of time. Do we have a motion to approve the meeting minutes?
So moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great, the meeting minutes are just in time.
I had this really strong feeling I was supposed to be somewhere. I was trying to convince myself I was wrong.
Do you want to jump in, or you want me to? Great, we just did minutes.
I'm
and
sorry.
You're fine, so we'll start with public comment,
Yeah.
or do you wanna chill for a minute?
No,
Okay, go for it.
chill. Chill, I'm dead.
That's right.
I don't see anybody that. Right, okay, do we have any public comment online? Well, yeah, it's good to see everybody. It's been a long time. Glad to see you. You came back. Okay. So no public comment. Jennifer, you're next.
I'm ready. Jennifer,
Tim's
sharing.
gonna tee us up a little bit for this. But yes, when you share your screen, re-log into the Zoom so she can add you.
Do you have to add me or?
I've got your
Send-
presentation pulled up.
Or Jeremiah can draw it.
It doesn't matter. I have it pulled up too. I just didn't know if I was doing it or not.
Awesome. I'm not on the agenda, but I'm glad to take just a couple of minutes. And so today, county staff are going to provide some updates on a variety of areas that are on the agenda. And so I think what we want you to know is that, this is the first time we've met since pre-storm. And so clearly a lot has happened, much impact on our environment. And so what we want to sort of tee up for you today is that work continues, but central to the work of staff on the Energy and Environment Subcommittee has been related to Hurricane Helene, Tropical Storm Helene, and specifically how we recover. And so a lot of what you'll see today, it's going to have kind of there's like background, like we continue on with our work, but here are some very specific things that have been occurring that relate specifically to the work of this committee. So I wanted you to be aware of that as we get into the conversation. It's going to be kind of hurricane, tropical storm heavy, but it's also going to sort of talk about like where we're headed next. And so how do we prepare ourselves from a sustainability or resiliency perspective to continue to recover from the storm. And so in some ways that may change the nature of the work that we may have started prior to the storm so that we can be responsive to the current state. And so we wanted you to hear that before we got into the conversation, and certainly open to anyone on staff sort of adding to those thoughts. So hopefully that seems reasonable to the committee, and just wanted to tee it up. So thank you.
Okay, good morning. Reminder, if you don't know, I'm Jennifer Harrison, regularly the Ag and Land Resources Director, but also in terms of recovery work, I am co-leading the Cultural and Natural Resource Recovery Support Function along with Ariel Zeit, who is our Farmland Preservation Manager in normal job. I don't know if we're making this distinction anymore. So, wanted to give you an update on where things stand, where we were working prior to storm, where we continue to work through the storm, and then give you some recovery stuff as well. So a reminder, this group recommended the adoption of the goal of initiating conservation of 20% of Buncombe County by 2030, and the full commission agreed with that. Here's what it looked like in the very beginning. Buncombe County is 420,480 acres. Given where we started, and that 78,530, that is inclusive of things like Pisgah and the Blue Ridge Parkway. So it's not just conservation easements on private property. So that's where we started. We needed 5,566 acres to get to the goal. So if you can go to the next one. Here's where we are. That orange line at 560 is what we thought we needed to do every year in order to meet that goal. These numbers are gonna look a little different than what you've seen before. They basically totaled the same, but we went back through and made sure that we were always accounting for the easements in the same year. Sometimes we accounted for the easement in the year it closed. Sometimes if we did an easement purchase beyond the transaction cost, we sometimes did the transaction cost date, sometimes the easement purchase date. So we went back through and we standardized it through through all the years on when we went to the commissioners and approved the transaction cost. So in 2021, that number used to look a lot higher, but we just went with transaction costs. So the totals are basically still the same. And you can see that in between 2021 and 2022, that's the time when the commissioners put in the $750,000 towards conservation easements. And you can see that really helped supercharge us. And then in 2024 is when we started seeing some of the bond funds coming in as well. We're on track, hopefully, to hit that this year, at least the 560. And you can see that we're about 1,400 acres from reaching the total by 2030. That is up a little bit from the last time you heard, which was 900 and some left. That is because a couple properties backed out. So it happens. And if you go to the next slide, okay, well, I'll talk about this and then I'll get back to that. We were talking about what does the goal look like going forward, since we feel confident that we will hit that goal of 20%, likely even before the 2030. So how can we continue to engage? And the discussion that we had was, if we were to initiate 700 acres, that would certainly be pushing that 560 that we originally set, and it would increase our total to 3,500 acres conserved every year, conserved total in 5 years. So that was the recommendation that was going to be part of the strategic plan goal for 2030. Any questions on that?
And just one question, just
Yeah.
going back. So you said that now across the board, it's when you come and you get the transaction cost
Yes.
approved, and that's the point that you're saying that
Yeah.
it's in process or it's been initiated.
Yes.
Okay.
And that way, and if you remember, this is a little bit nuanced to the goal, but the goal says initiate the conservation. Because to close a conservation easement, depending on the complexity, and part of that complexity is the funding source. If you're getting additional funding for easement purchase from the state or the federal government, that can take a while. But it can be 3 years, 4 years to close. So that's why we use that initiate. And that's why we went back and tracked it that way. It made more sense to really show you our progress towards the initiation of it. And we are hopeful that we will actually close all of those by 2030 and we will actually be conserved.
Yeah, so that makes sense to me. Thanks. I know that took some extra work and everything, but I think it's really smart to have that something consistent that we can track throughout.
And it felt good, and we had great documentation to go that way and just go back through all of our meeting minutes and go back through. So I feel really good about keeping that, our tracking mechanism going forward.
Forgive my ignorance, but does the landowner, do you have a signed commitment from the landowner once you initiate, or can they back out?
There are different points. A landowner can always back out.
Yeah.
The question is, what do they have to pay back? Where are they in the process? If we've invested in survey, we've invested in assessment, then yes, they have to pay those costs back. So we have switched our model to doing a kind of a preliminary survey on property so that we can give a landowner a better estimate of what we think the easement purchase will be. And also it helps them better understand the value that they potentially are donating. And it also helps us in grant writing. So when we didn't have that preliminary assessment, we were writing grants, doing our best to estimate the value. Now we have something more well-researched in order to be able to write our grants. That we don't ask for reimbursement. And that's not a lot of money. It's usually less than $1,000. But it's setting us up. But then once we get into the more official work, then they reimburse. And then they also have that assessment, or they have their new survey. They'll take that with them.
That's also helping. We've learned a lot over the years. And so by doing that, it really helps the landowners be very informed before, so we have fewer people that then drop out because they have some sense. Before, they really didn't have much of an idea of what they were committing to sometimes.
Yeah.
And so this really helps them make a more informed decision. So it really then helps our process, and it saves staff from doing all this work.
Yeah.
With a landowner that could be going on for a year or two, and then the landowner back out.
Yeah.
So it's really improved the process.
It's definitely worth the investment up front. So we feel good about the improvements that we've made to the program. And then if you go to the next slide, I mentioned that the bond funds have come in. So as you probably well know, we had a bond voted in from the community for $30 million for open space. Open space is conservation easements, passive recreation lands, as well as greenways. So all three are in that $30 million bucket. Here's a little update on kind of where the bond funds stand. The Board of Commissioners has already approved nearly 13 million in expenditures, nearly 17 million, because we recently took to the board another almost 4 million. And in that was, we had 3 easement purchases, but also the agricultural growth zone grant. And that was a matching grant that we got from the state for just shy of 2 million, 1.98 whatever million. And we matched that with bond funds so that we now have the ability, instead of applying to the state for each individual property, we now have been awarded the funds in a bucket, and now we can move those more quickly by allocating the funding. The only requirement that is different than if we were applying to the state is that the properties need to be within one of our conservation resource focus areas that we've identified, both through the comprehensive plan and through work with the 2 boards that oversee this work, which is the Agricultural Advisory Board and the Land Conservation Advisory Board. So that's pretty exciting.
Question right there, Jennifer. Maybe I misunderstood something when Ariel was presenting. So the agricultural growth zone, I thought those could actually only be used for the projects that were coming through our Buncombe County Soil and Water.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right.
Okay.
The AGZ, yes, has to be only the Agricultural Advisory Board.
Okay.
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay.
Those those are only ag lands and
Right.
forested lands that can qualify for that.
So for those funds are only through that program. So like we do a lot of work, I think all of you know, with our nonprofit partners on conservation. And so that 2 million, that pot of 2 million won't be available to help them.
Correct.
They will still rely on our typical conservation.
Yes.
The bond funds, the general funds, all of that, in order for them to be able to move that work forward.
Correct. And the our land trust partners do apply for bond funds. You can see like Lake Eden Preserve, it is up there. Deep Review Mountain is part of our partnership with Southern Appalachian Highlands Conservancy. So yes, so they'll still be able to access bond funds, just not that, that pot that we've set aside through the agricultural growth zone.
And just for the rest of you that don't know, it was a really big deal for our staff to be able to get that. That was the largest, that almost 2 million was the largest awarded in the state. So really great work.
And that came, you know, because we have great relationships at the state level. Ariel just does an amazing job with the program, but also through all the work we did through the comp plan and all the planning that has gone into us having confidence that we are working in areas that quote unquote make sense, meaning they're providing the environmental benefits and the ecological services that are byproducts of conservation easements. So we also have some anticipated costs that the commissioners have already discussed. And so that leaves around 10 million left in the pot for additional projects. One thing that was in the pipeline before the storm were the passive recreation lands projects. The reason we're showing just the lump sum here is we're still not sure what of those projects are still viable, which ones are not viable. And so we're working, the Passive Recreations Committee group is working to understand where to go next in that, whether that's a reopening the application process or.
Jennifer, sorry, maybe someone can give me this answer. Teka Heritage Trail, what's the 30-second update on? Is that gonna happen or not?
Yeah.
I'll take that one. So, due to the storm, all locally administered lap projects, DOT window, were put on pause, and that pause has just recently been lifted. And so those lap projects can move forward. Enka Heritage Trail, Greenway, those are both lap projects. And so our team, Allison Danes, Recreation Services Department, they're assessing impacts of the storm on those projects. Because a lot of our Greenway projects tend to be based on waterways, and so natural impact there. So we're going through that process. Don't have anything to share. I'm still moving forward, but need to see what's possible. Enka, not quite as impacted, obviously, as Woodfin was, but Pomney Creek is flooded, so.
It's, I think at the moment we scaled it back by 50%, the project scope.
Yeah, we had to move to terminus due to the nature of the brownfield agreement and something like that.
Landowner relationship is still in flux.
We continue to work with the landowner to close this project and secure the easements to construct this greenway.
Which implies that they haven't been secured to date.
Have not been secured.
Okay.
And, you know, Allison came before the board of commissioners a few months back and communicated specifically that the landowner was seeking additional compensation in the form of paving of parking lots near the Bob Lewis Ballpark, the baseball fields there. And so that's where we've left it. We'll continue to work, but step one, we really do need to assess the condition of that alignment.
Sorry, Jennifer.
No, it's not.
Just curious, because it sounds like, from what Allison, if I'm remembering correctly, like the landowner keeps asking, like, when are we gonna have an actual contract so they can't keep coming back and saying, we want this now in order to proceed. So that we have an agreement and we proceed rather than continuing to ask for more and more.
Sure. I think, you know, both parties have to sign that agreement. And so that's a piece of the puzzle. And one could argue that, you know, through conditional zoning that the city of Asheville passed, you know, almost 10 or 15 years ago that requirement existed. But I do think we need to get to a point of determining enough is enough, like what are we doing, are we moving forward with this project? So.
Since the storm has come up, has the storm impacted the environmental value of any of these easements? Or do we know yet?
That's an interesting question. We know that some of our easements, our forested acre easements have been hit. However, to have a forestry easement does not mean that you can't do any logging. There's a forest management plan. So we have forest easements that are reviewing their plan, working with forestry professionals to figure out how to recover their assets from the storm.
Soil erosion?
Yeah, you know, I mean, that's a hard thing to quantify in terms of asset other than loss of acreage, which has been a discussion across the board as difficult as you can imagine. We have a wide variety of the way deeds have been written in the past, and certainly depending on when the original deed, and if we're still working off the original deed, which might say from the oak tree to the, or the center of the stream. And with the stream moving, what does that mean? We got some guidance from our tax department that said that center of the stream means where the stream was when the deed was written. So you have to go back and see. So there's lots of complications that are happening to figure out people's property boundaries and then what their tax assessed value is and everything else. We aren't hearing a ton yet from our easement owners on that type of worry. That doesn't mean that it isn't out there. But so far, I don't have much I can say to that beyond the forested lands.
Okay, so I guess the other part of that question, which it sounds like you don't have the answer for yet, is that I've read that a lot of bottomland farmland is down to the bedrock, which means it's lost all of that we conserved, and I don't know what plans are. The ability to, I've never actually done anything agricultural restoring from bedrock. So.
It's an interesting question. Definitely, we're working with our partners at Extension to get the university's feedback on, how do we begin to mitigate that impact?
Jennifer, we also do annual monitoring, so that will be an opportunity
Exactly.
for us to see exactly what the impacts are. Like, it's a great question.
Yeah, I think on our agricultural, the health of our agricultural lands, we are still very much working through. There was worry in the beginning of the toxic mud, if you remember all of that. So far, the soil testing that we've been made aware of, with the exception of one test, has all come back within relatively normal ranges for heavy metals, and remember, there aren't wide, broad tests. We have to test for each metal. One test I've just been made aware of where arsenic levels were high, but what we don't know yet is, were they previously high? Arsenic's naturally occurring, so we're trying to dig into that. It may not mean anything, but we're trying to find that. But other than that, we've haven't seen the significant problem that we had feared, but we still have, to your point, massive erosion of our topsoils. We also have compaction issues. So we're working to understand that, and then Extension is really the pathway that we look towards to help give us guidance. And then our soil and water programs, our cost share programs for how, and our NRCS, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, their EQIP program as well, to help get these practices on the ground. We're not sure what those practices are yet, so we're in the process of working through what does it look like. And as you can imagine, every farm is different, so working to help understand what that looks like. we haven't had large scale farm operations wanting to move into our hazard mitigation grant program for buyouts. So I think that's a good thing. We haven't seen lots of people saying, I'm out. So we're encouraged by that. So that's kind of the update I have for you on land conservation and bonds. Moving on to the next topic, which is, oh, sorry.
Two quick questions. So as we go back and evaluate how some of these projects are looking after the storm, do we have the ability to go back and apply additional funding to some of these? Or is that still something on the table, or are we thinking something, I don't know what the mechanisms were to fund
For conservation easements?
Yeah, primarily for the Green Bay projects. I'm curious if they identify a need that been created because of the storm, is that something we're gonna go back and look at their remaining funds to potentially help meet the gap with?
I'm glad to take that. So with the remaining funds, a lot of these allocations were made by commission. So we would need to seek commission approval to continue on that path. As it relates to the remaining bond funds, where we left it post-storm in January, we sent an update to all the applicants and let them know we're on a pause as we kind of determine what our next steps are post-Helene. And so I think we put that pause into the July timeframe to give those projects time to kind of settle down, see what's still viable. And so we will re-engage that group in the somewhat near future and then update commission on kind of where we're at to determine next steps.
Was that the group that had gone through all the applications and then kind of ranked? Okay.
That's correct.
And that's what we would call passive recreation.
That's correct. And those projects vary greatly in scope. We have projects in Swananoa, projects in Ox Creek, Reeves Creek area, so definitely impacted areas. And so you need to see if those are still viable, but also cost effective.
And Tim, on any of our Greenway projects, the other one, not Pinga, but Woodfin, is there anything?
We don't know cost impact at this point. We certainly know environmental impact.
Yeah. Commissioner Sloan and I went and looked at the Woodfin Greenway recently and got some of the sense and what it's going to look like to kind of get that back up where it needs to be. So we're hopeful. Then the one other piece I wanted to ask about, in the vein of looking for silver linings in this total mess, are we looking at potentially how floodplain buyouts can be utilized to add maybe some smaller acreage? And then also looking at potentially like hazard mitigation funds we might be able to leverage for wetland protection. Kind of thinking how we can, looking at all the resources that are now on the table post-storm.
There's definitely great opportunity from hazard mitigation and buyouts. And those properties are permanently deed restricted, but would allow for recreational use for limited pavement and or trail system. So that's definitely something that will be considered as we move forward. The other opportunity, depending on how the properties play out in terms, and what I mean by that is it a property here, there, or is it here? There's a great opportunity for flood storage development as well. Definitely looking at the opportunity to establish riparian buffer. That's a big thing that we're working on. Coming up next, an emergency watershed protection program, is how are we looking at our stream banks as well as debris that's in the waterway. So we know that the county and FEMA are operating waterway debris removal, and that is comprehensive at times, but it's not all of our waterways. And so we know we have debris in headwater streams, smaller streams that aren't being addressed or were deemed ineligible from the FEMA piece. So emergency watershed protection has the ability to go in and do large stretches, miles of upstream and do debris removal. And then we also have the opportunity to do the stream bank stabilization pieces. And minimal restoration of riparian boundary. It's not as robust as we would like to be. So we're currently engaging in that program, all the while looking for additional programs that we can work to have more robust stabilization and restoration along our waterways. One of the things that is currently we're discussing is through the waterway debris removal program, does FEMA have any programs that will help with reseeding and revegetating banks? It's a difficult conversation, as you may imagine, when you can finger point. So FEMA wants NRCS to do it, NRCS wants FEMA to do it, and so trying to hold them accountable to get to a solution, which is definitely we need to stabilize our banks at a minimum and really restore them.
Is that something that we could take the funds from and just grant out to local partners, nonprofits that work in that area, and maybe just is one route to potentially tackle this if they're fighting amongst themselves?
They're just fighting on who's gonna give us the money.
Who's gonna give us? And some of the way the debris removal is working is that the county is not responsible for paying. The FEMA has contracted directly with the Army Corps of Engineers, who has contracted directly with Ashbridge, and then Ashbridge contracts. There's a cascade. So in that sense, I don't foresee the county getting the funds in that way, but yes, we are looking to our nonprofit partners to have discussion of how can we work together, where is there potential funding, potentially CDBG-DR grant funds, potentially other funding pots, 319 money, DWR could have some projects, state money. So yes, that's somewhere we want to go. Right now, we're trying to figure out what's going to happen at the federal level, and then what's happening with EWP, and then where do we have holes, where do we need to get working. We have great partners in Asheville Greenworks is already starting, and Mountain True is getting programs up and running, Riverlink. So that's definitely, those conversations are happening. We want it to be comprehensive. That's how we're thinking of it. So this is just an update on site visits, where we are, where we think we're going to land. We have no way of knowing how many sites will actually be funded through EWP. What we do know from our experience with Fred is that sites are eligible and they are not funded. So we have a better understanding of the what do you call the process when you it starts with an A. When you go back and you say, hey, no, look at this again.
Variable.
The appeal.
Appeals. There, thank you. Ooh,
Let's play that again.
I'm getting older. Anyhow, so we do understand the appeal process better than the word, and we hope to be able to argue for more sites if they are if they're not funded. We don't have a firm understanding of funding. There's not a clear pot of money just for us for Helene in Western North Carolina. So it's all part of just the bigger pot. So it's going to be difficult, but we are making great progress. We have our first round of submitted applications we've had reviewed. We're in the midst of doing some edits, but they were pleased. They were pleased with the programs or the projects. So I think we're making good progress.
How are the sites being identified?
Through our damage self-report tool. So people call the county, call us, we point them in the direction of the self-report tool. If they can't do that, we fill it out for them. So there's ways to pivot, but that's generally our repository for everything. If we've captured private roads and bridges there, we've captured landslides. Early on, we were capturing, hey, there's a tree down, so that self-report tool is still being utilized. We're getting anywhere from, 50 to 100 a week reports for all things. And then we're filtering through those and getting any sites that we think will be eligible for the program on our site visit list. One thing to remember with EWP, a structure has to be imminently in danger in order to qualify. So it isn't, unfortunately, just stream or bank repair, which is what we really need. And the imminent danger to a structure is twice the bank height inward. So you can take how high is the bank and measure that in, and the structure has to be that close. So it's very difficult to get these projects approved. But I do feel confident we will have hundreds.
It has to be a structure, it can't be a.
Structure could be a utility pole.
Okay.
It's not just a house. It could be a road, a bridge, buried septic lines or sewage lines.
I've been asking this question at the city too, and I just need to do more homework, but you might know. In the map of federal funding, where is the money for just having like a trash tree bank that we wanna fix for the sake of the street, for water quality purposes? Have we, are there, cause early on, you and I learned about, or you taught me about EWP, and I didn't realize that it was narrowed towards infrastructure. Do we know of any place where it's just like, let's help the rivers be healthy
Stream
again?
bank stabilization, let alone stream bank restoration, is one of the hardest
That sucks.
hardest types of projects to get funded. That being said, we do have some that we're hoping are coming on very soon. Our CPP is one that will do full restoration, and that's at no cost to the landowner or minimal cost to the landowner. EWP, the fantastic part about that program is it is 100% federally funded at this point. It's usually part state funding and part local funding. It's 100% funded by the federal government right now, so no cost to the landowner.
For how long?
For Helene, yeah, for all of Helene. But it's difficult.
What's the CPP program and where is
RCPP, that's a funding program through the federal government that passes money to the state. And the challenge with that is you have to have both sides of the stream, and you have to have it has to be a minimum of 1,500 linear feet. And again, when they roll out the next program, maybe those program rules will change, but so that often requires multiple landowners all to agree, and if you can't get consecutive minimum of 1,500 linear feet, you can't move that program forward. So we are talking with the city though about EWP and about the streams that they have identified as problems. So
Well, I'm also thinking about Drew and my visit next week to DC and just getting a better landscape of where this next phase of money is gonna come from.
and there's potential for the CDBG-DR funds. I just had a conversation this morning about that, whether we could get stream banks in that as well. Early on, our disaster contact for USDA said those fundings, the DR funding likes watershed plans, they like thinking about watersheds, so we're hopeful that that could be one place to get some funding.
Regional Conservation Partnership Program, sound great?
Yeah, Drew and Maggie, just get us more DR dollars and we'll talk about
Easy.
flexibility on
Should be no
what
problem.
to spend it on later.
We're basically getting told like, this will not be a money negotiating meeting, which is stinks, but that's okay. We can always have to fight for it.
but I mean, I think overall we can say the status of our rivers and streams is not good right now. You'll see a lot of chocolate milk, lots of opportunity. This is just a screenshot for our reporting tool as we go out and do surveys. What I wanted you to see with this slide is just, we really are working throughout the county. Those are all the site visits we've done, and this was a screen capture from a while ago. So there's really, the work is happening all over. So that's the point of that one. And then, oh, you didn't want me to turn that one? Okay. Didn't I have wildfires in there? That must have been a different piece.
Oh, you did.
I did have one. Anyhow, we're also working on wildfire prevention, the idea there is both lots of down timber that's laying there drying up and rock prime for catching on fire. And then, so we're working on identifying programs through PPDR that'll do, come in and clear out around people's homes. Beyond that, we're trying to identify ways in which to get down trees off of large undeveloped acreage. One of the requirements for FEMA's debris removal is they don't do undeveloped property. So trying to find ways that we can either A, salvage timber for use through building furniture and making slabs, timber, excuse me, not timber, go into Home Depot and buy a 2x4. And or firewood. So the main thing what we're really focusing on right now is the potential for another firewood mission to happen. We're in conversation with Team Rubicon to see if they can come and if we can work through our debris sites to be able to set aside potential good firewood and put all the not so good right through the other process of chipping. So we're working on that right now, and then hoping to try and do a larger scale. The other thing that's happening is we are working through our partners at Carolina Land and Water to do fire safety plans for different fire, oh my God, what is wrong with their mind? Different fire districts across the county. I believe we submitted 9 fire districts to have the plans written. We have 2 that are currently funded and are getting their plans written. And then once you have a plan, you can apply for implementation dollars. But that's 2-3 years away to get to the implementation phase. But we are working on the plan, so that's at least a step in the right direction.
Do you recall which 2 they are?
Yes, Swannanoa and Bernardsville are the 2 that are currently active, that are funded for their plans.
So those are plans for mitigation or fighting fires or what?
They're super comprehensive. They do everything from mapping fire hydrants, water input places, looking at debris load, looking at I've seen these plans, but I'm gonna misspeak if I say much more than that. But they're super nifty. They're packed full of everything that local fire chiefs need to be able to confidently operate in their fire district. So looking at where hazards are, looking at where opportunities are, looking at what communities don't have an input take, whether that's a fire hydrant or a place to put into a waterway to be able to fight fires. And then from there, they can then make plans to rectify those types of things. But it also does look at wildfire, the likelihood of wildfires.
words are.
Hey, okay.
Anybody have any further questions for Jenny?
I'm just waiting, can you repeat how that program's funded again? I'm kind of,
I don't remember the funding source. We are working through Carolina Land and Water to write the applications. I feel like, I'm gonna misspeak. I feel like it's Forest Service that's the funder, but I might be wrong about that. I can find that for you.
I'll just flag, I've been speaking with folks at the North Carolina Institute for Climate Studies, and they're trying to help get LiDAR coverage for the area. Actually had a conversation last night at the legislative event with a researcher at NC State who's working really hard to try and help us get LiDAR. I think when I was at the fire chiefs meeting, they talked about the desire to go through and actually go through each property and rate their level of fire risk, like green to red, which is another project that's moving forward. So I just said that to make everybody aware that they are having these conversations about how they can specifically tell each homeowner, you're in the red, you're in the green, and could, I don't know the timeline on that.
Okay. Moving on to air quality.
Okay.
What else has to be done?
Share my screen.
Oh, sorry, to go back. Have we tapped into North Carolina Land and Water Trust Fund dollars for stream mitigation? And it's okay if we don't know offhand, but I was just thinking through all the different, North Carolina Land and Water Fund. I don't even know if that made it in the budget this year.
Not exactly. We have a grant with them for actually some buyout properties to do a stream project up in Barnardsville. We have never used them for stream mitigation projects or stream restoration projects. We are aware of them as a funding source. I don't know where they are in the budget either of this right now.
Okay, on air quality, I'm Ashley Featherstone. I'm with Asheville Buncombe Air Quality Agency, and I was just going to go through a quick update with some of the things that we've been doing post-Helene. One of the main things that we do at the local agency, we are one of 3 local air pollution control agencies here in North Carolina, and we run, we're part of the National Ambient Air Quality Monitoring Network. So I talk about monitoring a lot, so I just wanted to start with these are the pollutants that we monitor for: fine particulate matter, or we would call it PM 2.5, ground level ozone, and also North Carolina air toxic designated pollutants. And these are just pictures of our sites at Board of Ed, Bent Creek, and AV Tech. So through the implementing of the state, local, and federal air quality rules here in our area, we have a permit program with over 70 what we call industrial permitted facilities. We implement the rules for the stage 1 vapor recovery, gas stations, captures of benzene, toxic air pollutants from loading of the large tanks. And then we also do the Buncombe County demolition permits, as well as the asbestos removal permits for the area. And as part of that, we review City of Asheville and Buncombe County permits for things like demolitions and asbestos removal. In addition to that, one of the oldest state air pollution rules is open burning. So that was passed back in the early 1970s. And it's something that keeps us really busy. The only thing that's legal to burn is brush or naturally occurring vegetation, not legal to burn trash, and this is only in areas where there is no public pickup for yard waste. We also have a state odor rule, nuisance odor rule to regulate what we call fugitive dust, and also area sources like dry cleaners. And then we have these EPA subject risk management facilities, like the facilities that use ammonia refrigeration systems and are considered high risk in the community. So the main thing that that we are looking at with Helene and where we've been super busy in addition to just the regular work, is additional monitoring. We've been concerned with fine particulate matter from what we expect to be a lot of storm debris burning. And we've deployed some additional monitors. So if you go to, like, say, the EPA Air Now site and you look at what the current air quality conditions are, which are also on our website, you will see the data from our regulatory monitor that I showed you. However, as we know, sometimes if you're out in Fairview, for example, and there's a lot of storm debris burning, you might smell smoke or see smoke and be concerned, go to the site and see, oh, it's code green, everything's fine. Obviously, we can't pick up all the pollution all over the county. So there are some non-regulatory low-cost sensors that have become really popular in recent years that have actually been really helpful for things like fires, especially out west where they're more common. And so I've got some slides just showing where you can find that data. But we worked with our state and federal partners to get 8 additional low-cost sensors that are scattered around and 2 additional regulatory grade monitors. So I'll show you pictures of those real quick. In addition to that, obviously, I have just a little more information about what we're doing with burning. There's specific rules on air curtain incinerators, which are being brought in to handle the volume of storm debris. And then there's also open burning of storm debris, which is an option. Demolition of asbestos removal permits. Of course, we're seeing a huge increase in those. Working with FEMA, permits and inspections on getting everything in place so that those demolitions can occur in accordance with the national standards. Lots of call volume, and we've got a lot more information on our website, and then also working with Department of Health and Human Services on this neighborhood built environment group. So I've got just a little more information about all those topics.
Do we have operational air curtains in the county? I feel like I get conflicting rumors.
Yes,
We do.
we do.
You have a map of it.
I do.
But I will say initially, when we started, we had talked about doing burning, and then we ended up going with USACE, the Army Corps, and then they do not burn. So
Okay.
a lot of these are gonna be with the folks who are using SDR as their contractor for debris removal.
That's correct.
Yes.
Bill up on Mains Creek, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
It's just that our government doesn't.
our
instigate.
contractor
Right,
doesn't
okay.
do that, the other contractor, I think it's Woodfin, Weaverville, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the
Right.
city, cause you're under the USACE too,
Okay.
yeah, so.
Okay.
So just to add to what Sybil is saying, I have a map where I can show you, but we don't have any open burning or air curtain incinerator burning at any of our sites, the temporary debris removal sites. It's mostly at Biltmore, and Weaverville is doing their own thing. So I can show you specifically where those are, but not at our sites. Not Ashbridge is not doing burning. So this is just a map that shows you, if you do go to the Air Now website to see current air quality conditions, this is something that we're trying to get the word out about. You can click on the fire and smoke map, and this shows you basically this big green dot right here is our regulatory monitor, but all these little green dots are low-cost air sensors or purple air sensors. And these work pretty well. So we circled the ones in red, the 8 additional that we received from the state and EPA that we have scattered around the county now. We also have purple airs at all the City of Asheville schools in collaboration with UNCA and a project that they're doing with us to look at pollution levels here locally. So I'm really just trying to get the word out to folks that there's good data out there if you're concerned. As we expect, there's going to be more and more debris burning, especially after the contractors are finished picking up debris and there's debris that wasn't eligible picked up. So, in addition to just debris burning, there's all the diesel engines and the work being done with the construction. So we're watching that really closely. And this is just a picture. This is actually called an emergency BAM, Beta Attenuation Monitor. This is the same type regulatory monitor that we have at Board of Ed. We have one at Fairview Elementary and one in Swananoa that have been added. They're not being used for regulatory purposes. They're just being used to supplement the data. We expect to have these for at least a year or so, and there are some added costs with these. Fortunately, these were provided by the state for emergencies, so we do not have to pay for those. We're just providing the manpower and the supplies. And then these are what the purple airs. You can't really see this tiny little white thing right here. That's a purple air at the Skyline Library. So we have 8 of those at libraries and fire departments, and been getting some high readings out in Barnersville. So we gave them a call and found out that they were having a barbecues. That's one thing about the sensors. You can put them anywhere, whereas our regulatory monitors, we're not allowed to put them anywhere that we could get, conflicting information. So as far as the debris burning goes, this is obviously open burning of storm debris. We are encouraging the air current incinerators, and I have some pictures of those to show you. They put out a lot less smoke, and so there are really complicated federal rules. I listed those down here. Don't want to get into too many details, but these are considered incinerators for EPA. So some of them are subject to the commercial and industrial solid waste incinerator rule, SISWE, and then some are other solid waste incineration units, OSWE. There's 4 of these federal rules plus state rules. So we've been really busy and encouraged, and especially by our state partners, to make sure that all the municipalities that are doing the debris burning are complying with all these rules, because they've had issues down east where they didn't comply. There was issues with FEMA reimbursement. So we've been super proactive about following these guys around and making sure that they're submitting all the required notifications and meeting all the standards. So we're just really trying to keep up with those. So we do have 5 notifications currently for air curtain incinerators. I've got a map I can show you. And storm debris open burning is also required. There are requirements around it as well. We do have 3 or 4 sites. We know there's a lot more going on. We do check those for compliance when we find them, but we are not getting requests for permission for obvious reasons. But you all know that there's a lot of burning going on.
So when you say there's 3 sites, so there's 3 sites that are permitted within Buchan County for open burning? Is that what I understood you to say?
Correct.
They're not air curtains?
No. So these are the air curtain incinerator sites. So we have given permission to 3 sites to open burn, and one of them is out in Barnersville. It's owned by the Rays that own the stump dump. They're no longer burning there, so that was not an active site. We did give permission to the town of Weaverville site to do some open burning there, but they are no longer burning there. So most of these, they're not currently burning. There is a private individual out in the north end of town that is open burning storm debris on his private property that has permission from us. One more, can't remember.
So to be clear, because
But none of these are permitted storm debris removal sites.
So say that again.
None of these open burn sites, well, yes, they are. I'm sorry, let me take it back. They're not actively taking waste and burning at those sites now. They've been at different levels of accepting the waste. So again, the ones that we have given permission to, 2 of those are no longer burning there.
So to be clear, so Barnersville, because I get emails of these.
Yes,
So
the Barnersville
Barnersville is no longer.
That's correct. They've
That's
not
supposed to be
burned since New Year's Eve when the fire got out and caught their mulch area on fire. We've had a lot of concern from the neighbors, and so they're no longer burning there. However, they have requested permission to operate an air curtain incinerator at the Riverside Stump Dump on Riverside Drive, and they are using an air curtain incinerator there. So those 2 sites are owned by the same business. So in lieu of open burning in Barnersville, they now have permission to operate an air curtain incinerator at Riverside Stump Dump on Riverside Drive.
And then the other one, the one, was it Reams Creek, you said was burning, but they're no longer doing the open burning?
That's correct.
Okay.
So right now, the town of Weaverville has decided that they do not want STR to do any more burning there, and so they are just chipping.
Okay.
Do you know how much longer that operation will be chipping for? Or this is just temporary for storm debris?
Correct. So I think what we last heard was that with the watershed program, they are actively hauling to that site. So they are doing the chipping associated with that. And I don't know any further updates as far as how long they plan to do that. We're mainly just keeping up with the burning. So.
What criteria do you use when determining if you'll allow burning versus require the air curtain?
Unfortunately, we cannot require the air curtain incinerator. It's an option.
Makes sense.
There are setback requirements, how far you have to be from the nearest occupied dwelling if you're going to operate
40 Cox building, getting their batteries installed week after next. So, yeah.
What does that do? If the lights go out, what does that do?
So,
Peak shaving.
Does
it's a
it,
great point.
it's peak shaving.
Yes.
It's not
So if you look at that center,
resilience.
right, you're getting ahead of me there. So if you look at this graphic right in the center here, that's really what the intent of these projects was. And again, this was a pre-storm mindset. I'll be totally honest with you. Like, I need these batteries to be cost effective and be efficient. And generally speaking, that's the process I'd have to use to then sell everybody else on, we need to do more of this stuff. Look, these were good, cost-effective investments. And so they are primarily there to shape peak demand, right? And to save us money. Ask me again in a minute and I'll tell you where I really want to go, right? But it's still an exciting foray into this space for us, and it's new for us. And so piloting these projects is going to teach us a lot. And frankly, already has. But once we get these things installed and operational, we're going to learn a lot about how they benefit us.
Is it probably true that there's no other county in the state doing behind the meter commercial battery projects?
County? Maybe true. City? Probably. Like Charlotte has been pretty ahead of the game in a lot of these. And I know they've installed batteries. I don't know how many or whether or not they're, specific to like this type of thing or if they're resilience or, I mean, I can certainly find out.
It's like always have to do a feather and cap check.
I mean, we're gonna have a lot of folks on a lot of things.
Yeah.
And if it's up to me, again, we'll get even further ahead by taking advantage of some of the opportunities that are coming down the pipeline. Glass half full, from all this other stuff, right? Community resource centers. So you might hear these described as things like resilience hubs. The concept is similar, right? It's community-facing facilities that are augmented so that they can support various community resources throughout their life cycle, right? They're used during the day for regular things, but in the events of disasters, they can be used for all kinds of other things as well. Well, these facilities will also push us further along the road towards our goals as well, right? So I'll get more into this in just a second, but resilient buildings and resource centers. So what we would like to do and where we'd like to put a lot of our time and energy in these coming years is towards taking enhancing the investments we've already made, right? To incorporate renewable energy on a lot of our facilities, to be as efficient as possible on a lot of our facilities. And what that looks like can mean anything from renewables to storage to water storage. That was not one that pre-storm I would have thought much about, I'll be honest with you. But water storage, EV charging, enhanced air filtration, because we know fires are a real risk in this area. Backup generators, even if that means that those backup generators are fossil fuel powered. We are looking at like a hybrid approach to resilient facilities.
When you say water storage, are you also considering wells?
Potentially. Each facility will really be kind of a unicorn, right? Based on current infrastructure, available space, whether or not it's in a downtown, well in a downtown area, no, probably not. Sure. Well out in a community center somewhere, maybe. Yeah. So they really will have to be evaluated on a case by case basis.
So saying water storage there,
it's
broader.
Potentially it's the cistern or it's,
Potable water?
Potentially, yes, that is the idea. I mean, did any of us take for granted flushing a toilet 6 months ago? Right? Like, I know I did. Carrying a 5-gallon bucket down the creek to go get water to flush changes your perspective on water storage needs. And so, it really gets us thinking about like the holistic building, right? And keeping it all functional so that our residents have a safe place to charge their phones, to get resources, we've used East Asheville Library, which is the building you see here, for, basically like a disaster resource center, right? Like it needs to be, when everything else is down, that needs to be running and that needs to be available for people. And that's sort of the mindset that we have going into this, going forward.
Before we
Yeah.
from that topic, I wanna just add some stuff. There's a lot of work happening in the community right now, around this. And some people call it resilience hubs, whatever, but the reality is like most of us got food or water from a place. And all those places didn't have wells or storage or what have you. And so, on the 28th, Thrive is hosting a meeting for people who led centers like that. So city staff are going, but also lots of churches. It's from 10:30 to 1:30. I can like send around event details, but it's basically trying to. It's gonna be really rad. I've put a lot of time into it. I really believe it because it's also not just people coming at us as government and being like, do this on your government buildings. It's people being like, oh my gosh, we did a thing at my church and that was life-saving, and how do we keep this? And it's looking at it beyond infrastructure resilience to the community resilience. Like, did you have an evacuation plan? Did you have a phone tree for your community? Did you have supply kits at home? As well as this group on next Friday is gonna look at kind of network resilience, because everyone, either city, county, or community who flushed these up, we were not networked. And when we started to, it was great, but it was all very organic. And so whether it's like my neighborhood one and your neighborhood one, and I get the granola bars and you get the water and we share, like there's ways to do this. And so it's really exciting that there's like community organizing around this instead of, again, being like government solve this for us. But it'd be really cool if we also plug into that, because we're gonna have different resources or community centers. So I don't know if someone from your department wants to join in and listen, but otherwise I can keep updating, because I think the community is really demanding this. And so us collaborating is gonna be so juicy and awesome.
That invite has been shared.
Great.
With a lot of the other support functions.
Great, awesome. Yeah, it's a little late for the invite to come out, my preference, like donuts, but nonetheless, I think it's off to a good start.
It's a terrific point. Our goal, at least today, because we do have sort of this like limited authority, is to, as a robust department of two, to really start to evaluate where these things make sense for us.
For your facilities.
For where we have jurisdiction to like implement a project. Right, and then to lay out what would we do at this facility, again, each facility being slightly different use case, right? But that's.
And hopefully do that in concert, because like if there's a really rad community one.
That's right.
In that same neighborhood, then it might not be the best thing for y'all to do, so just, you know. Plug it into that conversation. Glad to hear you're already plugged in.
The other part of this, again, tried to make a phone call after the storm, is that we've really realized the need for resilience around this tower as well, around our communications infrastructure. And so we've started putting some, again, initial plans together on what would it look like to create some resilience around the communication infrastructure that we have.
It's the only public county that overlaps with the wind energy map too. So.
Yeah, small wind turbine, total sense. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, resilient transportation. One of the things that we're looking at in this space, I think, is like mobile resilience options, that can be deployed from one place to another to charge cars, charge batteries, charge whatever. And so we're looking at those types of options as well. Basically coming up with all the coolest projects that we could possibly come up with that, asked me 2 years ago, I said the same things, like, oh, I want to do all those things, but there's no money for that stuff. These are not low cost options, but we're at a place where there's a pretty unprecedented opportunity, right? That doesn't mean we're not continuing to support the community in the ways that we can. And so some of these electrification campaigns that we have worked with in the past are really sort of shifting their focus more towards resilience as well. So Electrify Asheville Buncombe has started working on bulk purchasing campaigns for things like solar generators, looking at working with local folks to take advantage of the Duke Energy Power Credit Program, things like that. So really trying to push these clean energy technologies to the community as well.
Yeah, program's a no-brainer. Duke should be dropping flyers on hot air balloons and
That's
That's an awesome program.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is not fully done. So, there's still capacity there. Obviously, there's a lot, as I said, there's an opportunity here that we would not have seen without money, so glass half full. This may be a real opportunity for us to take PR money, or take HMGB money, or take some other kind of funding source that is looking at us today that wasn't looking at us a year ago. I had a meeting a month ago or so with the CEO of the Rockefeller Foundation. He just happened to be in town, and they called me on short notice and said, "Hey, you want to meet him?" Yeah, sure. I'll talk. Anybody that's got money, I'll talk to you. So, again, we want to strike all the irons hot and take advantage of these opportunities. So we're pitching project ideas, and again, if I get one of these or 100 of these, it doesn't really matter. I think what's important for us is to start to lay the foundation for what these need to look like, what each facility could be if the funding does become available. And so Jackie and I have really sort of pitched that as our budget for FY26 and our focus for FY26. It's not to, again, put everything else to the side, but to say that we need to expand our focus to include, what true resilience really looks like for the places that we do own and that we have really made changes to. That's it. Got to do that as fast as I could.
That's awesome. Good team. Thank you. I think there's some opportunities at least to ask, for corporate donations from some of these manufacturers and these various technologies and things too. That's something to think about.
Yeah, there's, I just was talking to the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Association 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Because they're working with Land of Sky, Project Footprint, and some others, and they're getting a lot of donations for again, portable batteries.
Oh, yeah.
Like a battery storage place where they can hold these things and deploy them out in the community when they're, I'll talk to you. Let's pitch ideas and see what we can come up with. And that stuff is supposedly at no cost to us, which is my favorite cost. So, we'll see. But we want to take advantage of every opportunity that makes sense for us.
We'll have 1,000 questions for you, but we're going to keep going.
Yeah, just a quick suggestion is that now that some of these are getting visible, and for instance, this conversation came up because of something I heard from seeing that Irwin High School field. The government down our community is sitting there saying, how much does this cost and how much does it benefit us?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it might be worth, now that you've got enough of these out there, to actually do a sort of press thing so that people can hear about it. Because these are now in their face. This is not sitting on top of the garage over here. These are out where they are all the time.
That's that. Any milestones we can have a press conference around.
And it is true, because I've heard that from the community too, in the urban area. They want to know, they're like, okay, is this actually saving the schools? Because in all reality, when we just did what we had to do with the school budget, I got a lot of blowback. Because people associated, they're like, you put solar in their minds. They're like, you're putting solar, but you just cut the school's operational budget. I'm not saying those two things are in their minds. So anything we can do to conform around, and I let them know, I said, two totally different places of money and all that. But the more we can do to inform, I think the better.
Makes sense.
Jackie, do you mind if we reverse your 7 and 8, do 8 before 7?
Sure. Which one's 8?
Committee terms, can we do committee terms next?
Yes.
But that's what we're doing.
Just a quick refresher, it's one slide. Yes. Okay, great.
That's right.
I'm not sure.
What do you got the and read that?
Well, I mean, the budget has started, so. I guess you guys.
Yeah, it doesn't impact the commission.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so this is what it looks like.
There we go.
Right, so no term limits for the commissioners who are serving. Several folks come not serve a full first term, so many your first term is 2 years is a partial term. Yeah, so you've yet to serve a full term. So the next,
Crazy.
the next two that are kind of expiring, Josh came in for Lena, so that term ends July 2025, and Chris came in for
Jamie?
Yes.
We just got
Jamie.
Josh here.
Right, Right, because there was a partial term and he was
Oh,
still on that, yeah.
Right, okay.
And so in July 2025, they can maybe reappoint.
Okay.
But just want to give a refresher on this.
Okay, so you're just saying they filled out those terms, but then they're of course eligible for a full 3-year term.
Correct. For 2 full 3-year terms.
For 2. Oh, okay. So there's no position then that we're going to have to fill. We would need to potentially reappoint, but there's no position that we have an open position unless somebody doesn't want to continue. Is that?
That's correct. So, yeah, just wanted to get ahead of July.
Okay.
Making sure you're all aware.
Thank you.
So when would you need us to take some official action so that we?
We can put on the July agenda.
Well, we probably do it in June, or the June agenda, yeah. For reappointment, if that's what you desire, if there's interest in continuing.
And I guess that would be the question too.
Yeah.
For you all to let us know whether you're interested in.
I'm into it, I just got here.
It's a long time, what I was gonna say.
Maggie?
Yeah,
I'm having a nice time.
I'll just interject quickly on this topic and the next, the new schedule. For those expiring terms in 2025, if you just shoot me an email, like what your intentions are, and then also as it relates to the, just the future of the committee, it's a new year, post-disaster. If you have thoughts on what this committee should be working on, thinking about ideas, you also shoot me an email about that. Feel free to CC anyone else on this board, as long as it's not a full quorum, just 4 persons, so 3 or less persons if you want to CC some folks.
I was 26, right?
Yes.
Okay, so
Topics and discussions and ideas for this committee to chew on in its future. Big or small. Sorry, Jackie, go ahead.
No, that's great. The next thing we want to talk about is just a meeting schedule.
Just real quick, in my introduction to this committee, we talked about progress in spite of the legislature that the county's made towards internal purchasing of plastic waste or plastics, reducing our own footprint through procurement. So just as an idea for a possible future topic, I'd love to hear more about that and what we can maybe do to add to that, elevate it. And so,
So typically in January or the first meeting of the year, we go over a meeting schedule. There's 2 scenarios outlined here. One would be if we want to meet quarterly, and the second one if we want to continue to meet monthly with, so discuss.
And I'll just say from a staff perspective, we have a lot of people who are working on filling and reassigned right now, so our request would be that we meet quarterly for the time being.
I'm fine with that. I mean, I feel like last year, a lot of the meetings ended up getting canceled because we didn't have anything to discuss anyway. So, I don't know. If we, as long as we keep those quarterly meetings and we don't just feel like, we're going to go. There's got to be something to discuss every quarter.
My only thought is, I'd love to meet again soon to talk, and I meant to shoot everybody an email weeks ago regarding what I just said in terms of topics, but I'd love to meet again soon to just talk about amongst ourselves what it is we want to do, what it is that we want to learn this year, what it is that we want to work on in light of everything going on in the world. And then beyond that, I think meeting quarterly is fine.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like, what is it that we?
What do we want to work on? And I think, there's a front, we haven't, this is our first time together, and a lot of that has probably been because staff has so much other stuff.
Yeah.
Totally get that, so we want to thread that balance, but I'm not ready to say yes or no to that until I know what we want to work on, and then you'd be like, great, this is the function it fits in, this is quarterly and that's appropriate, or subcommittees of this group could meet unstaffed to things, so it just depends.
We're good in May.
Yeah. Yeah, to do that, kind of have that meeting. Yeah, that makes sense.
And then,
Take April off.
Yeah.
Regardless of how many times we meet, or what is it is we work on, I don't ever want to make staff feel like you have to you know, show up. Everybody has to show up here, we all have to talk about something, you know, I don't want to make you like come up with stuff.
well, and one other thing to consider too is we will hopefully be working towards adopting our strategic plan at the, fall timeframe. And you all were instrumental in recommending some goals that, we're gonna work through the strategic plan. So whether they'll be adopted, I don't know, but you all are very helpful in helping to create those goals. And so I think once we have those goals, that's really something for you all to dig in on. How do we achieve those goals, right? That's really a great workload for you all to help us with. So just something to consider. I think once we have those North Stars that we can work towards, then we maybe could look at meeting more frequently. But until then, we have Helene that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
You're wanting to, flush out some ideas. So, yeah.
It might be a good reminder, if you could send us one of the strategic goals that we had flushed out.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful, so then that we all see, like, those are the things that we had already, it's been a while.
It's been a while.
I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember liking it.
That way, I think it will help us see, okay, these were things we discussed as some of the things that we wanted to focus on and see.
Okay.
I think that could be helpful as well.
Okay, we can absolutely do that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sloan, as you're collecting ideas, it might make sense if we could just structure that collection process. And so maybe we could meet with you offline to see what you've heard from the rest of the committee, and then we could prepare a document rather than spitballing during the next meeting.
Yeah.
Let's actually provide a read ahead so folks know what to focus on. We have more progressive conversation.
Absolutely, let's do that. I imagine the list would include things like that are questions and then like things to tackle, right, in two different categories, right? So let's do that.
Yeah, so in terms of that, from my perspective, I'm here to actually help y'all, both the commissioners and the staff in that. I've been in my year here, or it's not even been a year, I've really been impressed with what's going on. So I don't necessarily have things to bring other than the worries about continued lean and continued landfill, which everybody has. So what would help me when we meet to talk about where we go in the next year would be not a strategic plan, although those goals coming forward, yes, but what do commissioners and staff think are some of the things that they need my opinion on?
Yeah.
Because the rest of it you can do yourself.
Yeah.
I want to discuss your ideas though. You do have things, areas we're not looking at.
Well, particularly in the lean world, I think he's pretty well getting covered. To see that he's actually continuing on this all this energy and this resilient stuff in the face of the massive things that other things are going on, I think it's impressive.
What I would add is what I love is it's not in the face of, it's like complementary in terms of how we cover.
In the face of, in terms of your time.
It's so central to what we do next and how we frame these projects.
I guess the one thing I might throw out in terms of Helene, and I haven't heard mentioned at all, is actually moving forward the development. I don't know how much this committee gets into the development, but we talk about floodplain and development and things like that. It's a huge tangled political, financial, infrastructure, everything else issue.
Yep.
That needs to be.
I wouldn't have in the middle of the night thinking about that list. Yeah,
absolutely.
You're right. Yeah.
I would say, I think it's smart to let what we've just been through guide a lot of these discussions. For example, wetland mitigation and protection is, as we discussed, is like, what is the storm elevating? Like, let's let the storm elevate things on the list that should be elevated.
Yeah.
And lean into that. I think it's really smart.
Yeah, for me, it's infrastructure, just making sure that we have resilient infrastructure. What you're talking about is amazing, but the biggest issues that people seeing right after the storm is like, oh, there's not a single gas station that functions. Like, none of these gas stations has backup power to run their pumps. People were freaking out. The only story I heard about anybody getting a gun pulled on them was about gas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in general, our community came together in a way that was like, renewed my faith in humanity. And like, that was really awesome to see. But it also occurred because the power got turned back on and food was coming into this region. And so the people who were starting to panic got resources. And so we need to be in the face of what I assume will be less federal support for future projects.
Yeah.
We need to have our own resilience so we can provide food, we can provide fuel, we can provide the things that people absolutely need when this happens again. When it happens again, not if.
Has the county even put together, I'm sorry,
I have to leave.
oh, yeah. Is the county working on, or probably too soon yet, because you're probably still putting out fires, but has the county worked on all the things of identifying all the things that, gosh, we wish? You know, like Savannah Food Bank, who we relied on, gone. Ingles, our largest grocery store, you know, all the sewer lines. Has someone actually started to compile that, even in an informal way?
Yes. So,
Yes.
that's part of our resiliency work that we're doing for our recovery planning, long-term recovery planning.
So that
We're
might be-
getting there, we're getting there.
That it would,
Yeah.
it'd be, even if it's informal draft, that would be useful to bring in when we have this. In terms of just saying, I mean, I think we all have some ideas, but to see the full list.
I think a lot of it's more focused on internal, what we need to do, but there's a piece of that can be community related as well. So, but yeah.
I mean, this is the case where the environment reached up and slapped us.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so, but I'm hearing a May meeting
Yes,
or
is
May or
there,
June.
yeah, May or June? What was the overlap with the strategic plan, the timing of that?
Yeah, that's more like fall, September, October,
Okay.
November.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
Still working on the final
right, right, right.
details, but.
What do people think, Mayor?
It would still be this week.
The third Friday?
Yeah.
Let's do the third Friday in May.
Okay.
And we'll have a,
As the 16th.
let's try to figure it out kind of offline, and I'll take post list to staff.
Yeah, that would give you all a month to work together on
Yeah.
the list. Okay.
And then how much advance notice do you want from that list? And that way it gives us a deadline to make sure we get it to you in plenty of time for you to do whatever it is you need.
I would say probably need that.
30 days out.
Yeah, I was gonna say mid-April, like 18th or the 25th of April.
In the meantime, can you send us the strategic plan points that do go into this committee, please?
Yep. And they're just draft forms, so we're, as you know, we're working to bring those together, so they may change, but yeah.
Thank you
Thank
all,
you all.
because you all are doing a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah.
And this was really helpful, because I learned things today that I didn't even know you were working on. So thank you all.
Yes.